Who am I to be building this real estate company? And he said, immediately I would respond with, why not me? Someone's going to do it. I learned that if you serve people, you can learn whatever you want. And so now today I tell people service is the Trojan horse to knowledge. If you want to learn anything, just serve somebody. And so I just served. And then one thing led to another. And so like the biggest lesson I learned from being around these GoBundance guys was someone's buying a 100-unit apartment building. Why not me? Someone's buying a septic company. Why not me? Someone's an incredible husband, father, and business owner. Why not me?
This is the Better Life Podcast with Brandon Turner. I'm Brandon Turner, and normally with Cam Cathcart as well, but today Cam is not here. I'm doing a solo episode with a good buddy of mine. You guys are going to absolutely love. I just got finished recording this episode with Matt King. Matt King is a person who I have looked up to, I have learned from, and I have used as is it a verb? Is that the word? I don't know. Like, Matt King something. Like, this guy is one of the best executors, one of the best minds around organization and talent that I've ever seen. He went from intern to CEO of a group called GoBundance that I'm a big fan of. And he tells his whole story today on the podcast. You're going to love this thing. Just his insight and his wit and his mindset around growth and what it takes to grow a business is just phenomenal. You're going to love that. So that's what's coming up on today's episode. I don't really have a whole lot other stuff to cover here in the intro other than to say thank you for listening to this show. You know, it actually really makes me happy when I hear people say that they listen to the show. I met a guy at the gym the other day who actually was like the first time he was like, hey, aren't you the guy from the Better Life podcast? And it wasn't like from the Bigger Pockets podcast or from, Instagram. It was like, he knew me from this show and it made me feel so happy. So shout out to that guy. So for everyone listening, let me just ask a quick favor then on that. If you would tell somebody about the show, just shoot this show to somebody. When you're done listening today, just shoot it to somebody and say, hey, I thought you might like this episode. You never know whose life you might change. I mean, Matt King today is going to just lay some real foundational stuff around goals, around success, around wealth, around money, around ambition. You're going to be like just blown away at this guy. So, and he's young too. Like you're going to love this. So without further ado, let's get to the interview with Matt King. This episode is brought to you by our friends at TurboTenant and Ballpoint Marketing. These two companies are big supporters of the show, and they know how to work with real estate investors and help real estate investors grow their businesses. So be sure to stay tuned to hear how you can get, discounts and free stuff from them both. And as you probably know, all the profits from this show go to charities of the guest choosing. So when you listen to the sponsors on the show and you work with these hand-chosen by me sponsors, you're actually doing good for the world. Now let's get to the show. Matt King, welcome to the podcast, man.
Thanks for having me, man.
All right. So I know you as the CEO of GoBundance. I've known you since long before you were CEO of GoBundance, but I know you as that. We'll talk about that, I'm sure, today. I know you as really one of the most effective, team builder, operators. I don't even what you call it, just like a guy that can get stuff done that I've ever known in my entire life. In fact, for years, I used to tell people, I just need a Matt King. That was a phrase. David Green and I would always say that. We just need a Matt King. I know you as the only guy who tore his Achilles while riding a bull and then later buy a bull because of that.
Yeah,
I would love to hear that story and have you tell it people. That's who I know you as today, and as a father and as a husband. But take me back before all of that. Who was Matt King?
Yeah, so man, I grew up in a small town in Wisconsin. Just a simple kid, simple middle class parents, great people, very competitive athlete always growing up. And I've never been tall. Unlike you, I've never had this advantage of being tall. Can't grow a beard either, by the way. But I've never been tall, and so I was always counted down or counted out in my life. And so that fire inside of me really burns bright to find the way or make the way to do whatever I want to do in life. So. Yeah. When you say I'm very effective at getting things done, it's because there's this little voice inside of me that remembers as that kid, they're like, you're never going to be a goalie. You're 5'6". Yeah. Okay, cool. I'll never be a goalie. And I use those words as motivation. I use those words as inspiration to do whatever I wanted to do. So growing up, I was just a small town kid. Started working at a country club when I was 17 years old, cleaning shoes in a locker room. So you want to see naked men work in a locker room as the locker room attendant, right? But what was cool was we sat there and cleaned guys' golf shoes. But from that, we got to listen to all their conversations. So we got to hear what was going on in the market, how they were hiring employees, what deals they were looking at. And I just was a sponge. I just absorbed as much information as I could. And it was in that opportunity that I learned that if you serve people, you can learn whatever you want. And so now today I tell people service is the Trojan horse to knowledge. If you want to learn anything, just serve somebody. You did it. You did it with Bigger Pockets, serve. And so I just served. And then one thing led to another. I went and ran a t-shirt company, silk screening and vinyl sign shop.
Really?
was running that when I was in college. And
still in Wisconsin?
Still in Wisconsin. One of the members was like, hey, why don't you come start helping me run my t-shirt company? It's blowing up. So I started doing that. One day, the guy, still a good friend and an incredible mentor of mine, he pissed me off. I was coaching soccer at the time, and I was probably working 70-hour weeks. I had to leave at 5 o'clock for a game. He's like, oh, you're leaving early today. I kicked the door. I was like, I quit. I'm done. Went and started my own company the next day. Started my own vinyl sign shop, own t-shirt printing company. And I remember there was a day I was printing t-shirts. I had to print 300 t-shirts for Aurora Hospital. They had a run that weekend. And I was going to make $3,000 printing these t-shirts, but I had a test that night for college. I was like, okay, so I've got to print these t-shirts. Now, if I wouldn't have procrastinated, I could have done both, but I procrastinated. So I was like, okay, I got to print these t-shirts or I can go take this test. And it was in that moment that I decided I'm just going to bet on me. I'm not going to bet on the school system. I dropped out of college, just ran my own company. And then one day, my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, she came to me and said, hey, I'm going to move to Washington, D.C. I said, great, I'm coming with you. She's like, I didn't invite you. Okay, cool. Got it. But I'm like, no, I'm coming with you. And so I sold my business, packed up my car, packed up her car, and moved across the country to Washington, D.C. And it was there, again, through service, that I met Pat Hien. I was in Baltimore, Maryland for the summer, and I didn't have a job. I thought I was God's gift to the universe with $20,000 at the age of 23, right? Because that's a lot of money. Hindsight, that's nothing. But I was like, wow, I'm loaded. What am I going to do? I'm like, I'm just going to take the summer and relax. And so I was like, well, I'll find a volunteering opportunity to see the city. So I went on Craigslist, found a camp for children with incarcerated parents. They paid $500 for 2 weeks as like a stipend. I'm like, what a great way to see the city, help some people, whatever. The day we took the kids from Baltimore to DC, Pat Hien was the co-chaperone in my group.
Oh, that's cool.
So I'm sitting on this bus, and this, bald guy's on the bus with me. And I'm like, so man, what do you do? He's like, I'm a real estate investor. I'm like, oh God, one of these guys, right? Like my eyes roll back in my head. I'm like, here we go. I'm like, okay, tell me more. He's like, I'm a New York Times best-selling author. Like, and anybody that knows Pat knows he's like very factual and direct.
Yep.
So you're like, okay, you're a New York Times. Like, what does this even mean, right? I'm a small town kid in Wisconsin. Like, what does a real estate investor mean? And again, just being curious, I asked questions. And then one thing led to another. I went and bought his book that night on Amazon, read it cover to cover the day it arrived from Amazon. And then I sent him a Twitter message. I don't even know what you call those, DM on Twitter, and said, hey man, what would it take to earn coffee with you? I just read your book cover to cover. I really enjoyed the conversation. He's like, well, how about tomorrow, whatever. So I went and had coffee with him.
Can I just say that line? I love that line. What would it take to earn? I heard David say something like that too.
Absolutely.
And I was like, yeah, what would it take to earn time with that? Well, and I love that you also said, I read your book cover to cover.
Yes.
I probably get asked, every day if they come to coffee, they come out and visit in Maui and they want to go to, and I'm not saying like I would do it if they said they read my book, but I would guess 95%, maybe 99% have never read my book.
Right.
It actually means a tremendous amount. If somebody says, I just read your entire book or all your books and I would love to go to lunch with you. You want a 10x your chance of me saying yes. Like that's the sneaky thing.
Well, and if you want a 20x, it'd say, I just read your book cover to cover. How can I serve you?
Yeah.
Like, even if it's, hey, Brandon, can I cut your grass? Just to be around you just from proximity, because proximity is power. And so, yeah, absolutely. It's like, what does it take to earn lunch? What does it take to earn a call? Because like, you really want to earn it. I want to earn your time. Your time's valuable. Yeah. That's what I said to Pat.
How do you balance that with like, because we often talk about when you go to somebody's like, hi, how can I help you? I want to help you. Now it's like, I'm putting the onus on you to figure out, I don't know what I need. So how do you balance that? Being able to offer service without putting all the work on the person you want to meet?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think because of social media today, you can see where people need help. You can see what they're doing for their lives. You can see where they're going. I mean, here's a great example. I'm buying a ranch right now. And so if somebody wanted to be of service to me, they could follow me on social media, see that I'm buying a ranch, and know that I know nothing about ranches, just bought a tractor, don't even know how to start it. And they could say, hey man, I know how to run tractors. What would it take to come and serve on your ranch for a day? I'd be like, please, like, show me everything you know. And then when they looked at me and said, teach me real estate, or teach me how to run business, or teach me about being a husband, I would tell them everything I knew in return. So I think you just have to be aware of what people need, be aware of what people are doing, and then just serve it. Yeah. I mean, you've got an event coming up in Denver, right? Yep. You're going to need volunteers to help you at the registration table, mic runners, water runners. Hey, Brandon, what would it take to serve at your event? For free. Yeah. I just want to be there. I'll pay my way. I'll pay my room. What would it take to serve?
That's cool. I love that, man. Yeah, I think there are certain things that every person also needs. I mean, like, I'm not saying every person's going to needs dry cleaning, not necessarily, but like everybody needs their groceries picked up from Whole Foods. Let's just say everybody needs their car tabs renewed every 3 months. Like there's always these annoying things that everybody always needs. And if you're like, hey, I can help you figure that out. Like, yeah, there's so much. Like, I'm not gonna think that when somebody asks me what can I do, I'm not gonna be like, well, can you go renew my car tabs?
No.
Like, but somebody that comes to me, they're like, hey, I'm gonna help you get your car tabs figured out. I have 5 cars. I never renew them on time. I'm behind like a year on my emissions test. Almost like it's this constant problem. And everybody has these problems.
Everybody.
And so, yeah, just knowing that.
Just paying attention to what your problems are and trusting that you probably have similar. The person you're trying to attract has similar problems.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Okay, so interesting that idea. All right, so meeting Pat Hien.
Yeah.
For those who don't know Pat, I interviewed him back on Bigger Pockets back in the day.
Yeah.
Just a phenomenal character of a guy.
Yeah, he's a character.
I've done a real estate agent and real estate investing. Really just killed it. I know he's part of your story later on.
Yeah.
But keep going. Where are you?
Yeah.
What happened next?
So Pat said, hey, you're going to go volunteer at this thing called GoBundance.
Okay.
It's an entrepreneurial-based mastermind group. Now, I'm 23 from a small town in Wisconsin. I had no idea what a mastermind group was. He's like, you're going to work 18-hour days, sleep on a couch, but trust me, it's going to be awesome. It's like, okay, like it's in Orlando, Florida. You're paying my way. Like, sure, I'll go.
Yeah.
So here I am at a house with 13 guys, one of which was Ricky Williams, by the way, the Heisman Trophy winner, which is kind of a cool little story. And I was just volunteering. I was serving. I was making sure they had the right wine, had water, ran and got lunches, ran and got food. And at that moment in time, Rock Thomas and David were leading the event. So I meet this guy named David Osborne. I'm like, who is this guy? Like, and I will never forget to this day, Ricky Williams was drinking wine and David had brought all these expensive bottles of wine and then he brought some cheaper bottles of wine. Ricky was drinking wine and I said, hey, do you want more wine? He's like, yeah. And I gave Ricky the expensive wine and David pulls me aside. He's like, after 2 glasses, you give him the cheap one. He doesn't need the expensive one. I'm like, oh, okay, got it. Like understood, my bad. And they knew I was a big golfer. And so David said, hey, we're playing golf tomorrow. We've got an extra spot. Do you want to play?
Oh, that's cool.
And I said, look, man, I'd love to play, but honestly, I love caddying. Could I just caddy for you? And he's like, sure, you can caddy for me, but like, why the hell do you want to caddy when you can play this incredible golf course? And the reason I wanted to caddy was because if I played, I wouldn't be present to actually listen and understand and learn. I would have been lost in my own game, frustrated by this shot, that shot, the other thing. And I thought, if I just serve these guys, I'm going to be able to learn for 4 hours from Rock Thomas and David Osborne, who at that moment in time, their cumulative net worth was probably $90 million. Now it's probably $250 million. So I stood on the back of a golf cart for 4 hours listening to these 2 guys talk business, deals, investing, people, hiring, personal problems. And I just learned. And all I had to do was like make sure the flag was out and rake a bunker. Like it was awesome, right? Like awesome. And so the next GoBundance event came up. Pat said, hey, you're going to go volunteer at this one. And just like something subconsciously like was attracting me towards like David's energy and David's world.
Yeah.
And I remember looking at David and his wife was coming to town that day. It was in Tahoe at Squaw. And he's like, hey, can you go get my ski boots? So I ran up and got his ski boots and brought him down and he was eating breakfast. And I was like, man, his room's a mess. And I'm like, if my girlfriend was coming in and my room looked like that, I was like, hey, dude, this is going to be a little bit of a creepy question, but like, I know Tracy's coming in. Like, do you want me just to straighten up your room real quick while you ski? It won't take me long. It's like, no, that's weird. And he like thought about it for a couple minutes. He's like, yeah, do you mind? I'm like, no, I don't mind. I don't mind at all. And literally got on the airplane to fly back to Washington, D.C. after that trip. And I rewrote my 5-year vision. I said, I live in Austin, Texas. I work for David Osborne. Never had visited Texas in my life at that moment. And 2 weeks later, he called and said, what would it take to get you to Austin? I think you're talented. I'm like, I literally just wrote this vision. And so we moved 3 months later, and I've been working for him about 10 years now.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, it's been pretty fun.
You mentioned vivid vision.
Yeah.
Is that based on that book, that terminology from the word vivid vision, or did you have that before that?
No, I had it before that. It's one of the things that GoBundance was preaching at these events I was volunteering at. It's like, have a 5-year vision for your life. And at that moment in time, I didn't have one. And what's interesting is like, there's a Harvard study right now that only 86% of the population doesn't have goals. Only 86%. Like, what do you mean 86% of the population doesn't have goals? 14% of them have a vision for their life. Not goals, but a vision. I was like, wow, if I can get in that 14%, what would my life look like?
Yeah.
And then there's only 3% of the 14% that actually write down goals and set them and then accomplish really cool things. And so I learned those things through GoBundance. And I just was like, wow, if it worked for David, if it worked for Pat, like it's got to work for me. I was a C student too, just like, so it's got to work, right? So I just practiced it from that. And then, yeah, Cameron Herold's book's incredible too. Vivid Vision's awesome. But I just started having a story for my life.
How does that work in terms of like, how do you think vision works? Like the law of attraction, the secret, all that stuff, like how it does seem to work. It works for me. It works for you. Like, why is it when we write this stuff down with clarity, they tend to come true?
So when you're looking at a car, right? You want to buy a new car. Let's say you want to buy a red Range Rover. Yeah. You're like super excited about this Range Rover. So all of a sudden you go look at the Range Rover, you're looking at it online. Now, advertising has gotten really good, so you see it a lot more than you used to. But all of a sudden on the road, you would start to see red Range Rovers all over. Yeah. And that's your reticular activating system. And I think if you actually program your reticular activating system or your subconscious mind, like this is what I'm looking for in my life, go out and find it. The universe, God, whatever you believe in works in these incredible ways. Like I think we totally underestimate the power of our own mind and the power of our intuition. That's another thing. I think people question their intuition a lot and they allow stories from others to stop them from taking action on things. And so I think when you have a plan for your life, the universe, God, whatever you believe in shows up in these incredible ways and your vision is right in front of you. All you have to do is choose it.
That's awesome. Well, universe, God, what's your belief on that?
So it's really interesting. I remember in COVID, you and your wife were doing songs on Facebook.
Yeah.
You guys were singing songs and I was not very spiritual growing up, was never really around it. My dad always said like God was between the white lines on a soccer field on Saturday. Like it was time to be present with your own thoughts and your own self. But your songs actually, believe it or not, kind of sparked me on this journey of like looking into this spirituality piece. And today we've gotten way further in it with my family, my wife, my kids. And we're like still in it. Like one of my goals this year is to read the Bible cover to cover.
Oh, nice, man.
Didn't realize how thin those pages were. Like, holy cow, it's a lot of pages.
It's like 20, 30 minutes a day of reading.
It's a lot.
I've done that. Yeah.
It's a lot. So I'm going to read the Bible cover to cover, going all in on that stuff, trying to explore it, trying to understand it, trying to really like understand what God means to me. And so to answer your question, I'm still searching. I'm still seeking. But I'm very curious and I'm very aware something is there for me. I'm called to something right now and I'm exploring it.
That's cool, man. I like that phrasing. It's like, I'm called to something. Because that's what I think. I mean, that's even a biblical statement of like, God calls us. Now there's debate on, is he calling everybody? And I think there's probably a way to do that. But there's something that draws us to that for whatever reason that we're like there's something there. What science has given us is great. I'm a big science guy. Like I love it. But it's not enough. It doesn't answer every question. It doesn't answer the deep, maybe even the deeper questions. And so there's something in our soul that longs for more. So that's it's cool that you admit that you're, searching.
We cool. Just, it was fun. We just interviewed for a really, really cool school in Austin and got rejected, which I don't do well with rejection.
Me neither.
But what was cool is they said like, part of why they said no to us was just because of our spiritual maturity. I was like, wow, what a cool way to say like, you're not spiritual enough for us yet. Like, and it was, it wasn't with judgment. It wasn't with like disgust. It was just like, you're on your journey still. And we want to give you space to process that before we bring your kids into this environment where it's all in. I'm like, okay, I respect that. I understand that. Now, they didn't tell me that from the start. I had to ask like, why did we get rejected and follow up 3 times. But nonetheless, I found out. And I think that's exactly where I am. I'm spiritually maturing. That's what I would tell you.
Okay. That's very cool. Not liking to get rejected. Let's talk about that for a little bit. I'm the same way, but where does that come from?
I think again, it's those doubters when I was growing up playing sports. I hate to lose, and I hate to be controlled. And I think one of the things that I feel inside is when I'm rejected, I'm being controlled by someone else. I'm being told by someone else I can't do what I want to do, and man, it just kills me. It eats me alive. It drives me crazy, and it's something I'm paying attention to because, like, I will find myself in the car at times, like competing with somebody next to me in a car that doesn't know we're competing, and I'm like trying to win. And so there's definitely a little part of me that's paying attention to that and being aware of it. But I definitely feel as though there's this little boy inside of me that was doubted, that was counted out, that was never going to make it, that was a college dropout, that was foolish for moving across the country with his wife, that was an idiot for moving to Austin, Texas to work for this random stranger. And I just don't want to be controlled. I just don't want to be controlled.
I've told this a lot, but I just think it's a funny story. When I think back, I studied for law school. I took the law school entrance test, right? The LSAT. I studied for 6 months. I actually did really well on it. I mean, I really worked at it. But my score was not quite high enough to be a shoo-in at like Harvard or Yale or Stanford. So I never applied to anywhere.
Wow.
Not a single school because I was so afraid of that rejection. At the time, I had other reasons of why I didn't apply. But when I look back and I'm honest about it, because I didn't want to be rejected. You can't get rejected if you don't ask.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Today I'm like, man, but even today, like I don't actually, like I've learned that I don't have to fix that in myself. What I mean by that is like, I do think it would be better in life if I did fix that, but I've gotten pretty far by not fixing it, by finding other ways around that. For example, I hire people to make offers for me. So like, I don't get rejected. They get rejected.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
like I'm not the one, I have multiple different masterminds. I'm not pitching people to join.
Right.
Like they're like, either they're coming to me and they're asking to join and I keep it, I'm really good at marketing.
Right.
You could say that I'm good at marketing because I don't like to be good at sales.
Right.
Because I don't want rejection. So I'm forcing myself the other way. It took me 4 tries to actually ask my wife out. Instead, it was just like this awkward, like, I really like you. And she's like, cool.
That was like before text too, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Before the Tinder thing where it was really easy.
Now it's really easy. Yeah. All those things are built for people to avoid rejection.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And man, I'm sure there's a lot of power on the other side of that, but I don't know if I've ever fully.
I think what's cool is, and I think you're wise, like, I don't think you have to fix it. I just think you have to be aware of it.
Yeah.
Because you have to understand that I could, through osmosis or through proximity, transfer this to my children, transfer this to my wife, make decisions around them that would deter us from doing things because of rejection as well. I think in business and in life, it's great to harness that. And I do the same, but I think it's also beautiful that you're aware of it, because now you can pay attention to it when your kids want to do something and that little inner voice says, oh, don't be rejected, but your kids really want it. So you're like, all right, let's do it. Let's go for it and see what happens.
Yeah. That's a really good point, man. Yeah. Even in my parenting, I found it being aware of like, there's fear of rejection and fear of like people like over empathizing with people. I'm like, oh, I just know they're going to feel really bad if I say no to them. And so therefore I'm going to do it even though I don't want to.
Yeah.
So I would rather feel bad than them feel bad. And I've noticed that in myself.
Yeah.
And then I've noticed it in my parenting.
Yeah.
So like, I don't want my kids to feel bad. So I let them sleep in the bed with me for way longer. So I would sleep like crap for years because I didn't want them to feel bad. And a buddy of mine who I hired as a coach, he really pushed that, like emphasized that with me, is like, you are sacrificing your health just to make them not feel bad for a little bit.
Yeah.
And in a way that actually is probably better for them to feel bad and then get over that.
Right.
And so it just made that little shift. So just being aware of it, that I know that's a tendency I have. And then now I can fight it a little bit more.
Yeah, it's a tendency I have too. And I heard Jesse Itzler said a brilliant thing. He delegates his easy no's and he handles his hard no's.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So he's like, the easy no's my team handles. I don't want to be on that call. I don't want to be on that podcast. I don't want to work with that person. But the hard no's, like his friends, his family, he handles those. And the way he handles those is with acts of service. So if he says no to his friends for dinner, he'll call the restaurant and be like, hey, my buddies are coming. Let me pick up the tab. He'll shoot them all a text. Hey, guys, got dinner. Sorry, I couldn't make it. And so he finds a way to not feel bad for saying no because he's like manipulated his way around it, right? But that's what I've started to do. I'm delegating the easy no's and I'm now handling the hard no's. And I like the hardest no's are the children, right? Like you just alluded to it. The children are the hardest ones. And I don't think you can delegate those. I mean, you could hire a nanny, but I'm delegating all of my easy no's, which I'm sure you have a lot of those as well. And they just suck our time.
Yeah. How do you say no to people? I mean, like, how do you decide what's worth pursuing, what's not? I mean, you came out here on a podcast, came out to Hawaii.
Yeah, no, it's cool. It's a cool place, man. I wouldn't go back to Oahu, but I'm always sick. I'm always awesome. I look at what my vision is for my life and I run it through that filter. I run it through my goals for the year. And if it's in alignment with that, I'm yes. And if it's not, I'm a no. I'm definitely getting better at it, honestly, Brandon. Like if you would have asked me that question 6 months ago, I would have said I say yes to everything because there's an opportunity everywhere to learn everything.
Yep.
And I think there is a point in your life where you have to say yes to everything.
Yep, I agree.
But then there's a pivot point and you'll know it internally, intuitively when you have to pivot. And when you have to pivot, you have to be willing to pivot. And it's hard. Yeah. It's uncomfortable. But now I just look at things and if it sacrifices my family. If it sacrifices my kids, I'm a no. If it's not in alignment with my 5-year vision, I'm a no. If it's not in alignment with my goals this year, I'm a no.
Yeah.
If it's in alignment with those things, I'm a yes. I'm a full body yes. I'm running through it as hard as I can.
I used to say same thing. I say yes to almost everything. And I would people would ask me to come speak. Yeah, sure. No problem. I'd come speak all the time. I was gone even up to last year, 2023, I was gone maybe 150 to 200 nights that year, away from my family, traveling somewhere for some speaking gig or conference or event or something I had to be at. And so to go back to the goals thing, right? One of my annual goals this year was to only spend 12 days away from the family all year.
Wow.
So the 10x smaller the amount I had to leave my family. And so all of a sudden now I have this constraint to operate within. And all of a sudden saying no became way easier. I have I've used up 4 of my days so far for a mastermind, actually, where I was in Austin with you.
Yeah.
I've used up 4 of them so far. I got another GoBundance Champions event. I'm going to use up 3 more coming up. But now it's like the only thing that gets yeses are the hell yeses, right? Like Derek Sivers talks about, say no unless it's a hell yes.
Yes.
Because now I have a goal and I'm aware of my goal. I'm aware of the reason behind the goal and I have the goal. So saying no is a lot easier. Yeah. And then I had a buddy reached out the other day and said, hey, can you come speak on my real estate event? It's a big event, 1,000 people, opportunity, right? I get to go pitch the Better Life Tribe or the 50 or whatever in front of all these people. But I'm like, it's 2 days away from the family, 2 out of 12. Like that's a
Yeah.
big chunk, right?
Yeah.
So instead of saying no, though, I did something I've never done before. I said, okay, but I was like, I don't charge people to speak ever, but I'm not coming, period, unless it's really worth it. And I told my friend this. I'm like, it's going to be 50 grand, but I'll give you it for half off.
Yeah.
And he's like, deal, done. And I was like, oh, well, that was easy.
Yeah.
Like, I just made 25 grand. The same day somebody else asked me to speak, I said the same thing. And they said, deal, done. I was like, dang it, I should have not charged it. I should have charged the full 50. I should have said 100, I'll do it for half.
Yeah, there you go.
But like, now all of a sudden I have a filter to run it through. So that's why I want to go is to talk about goals. And goals can be a great filter there. But how do you structure your goals, whether annual, vision goals, quarterly? Like, what's your life look like in terms of achievement?
Yeah, so I have a journal. I followed David's blueprint. I have a 5-year vision for my life. I have a vision board for my life. And that 5-year vision, I just reverse engineered into what do I need to do this year to move that ball forward. Now, one of the things I recognize is so many people start goals January 1st and end goals December 31st. Yes. And I think that works for some people. It doesn't work for me. I found that about Thanksgiving time, I got lazy. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm writing that goal off. I'm writing that goal off. I'm writing that goal off. So I actually start my year December 1st every single year.
Oh, that's cool.
And I tell everybody, like, I have 13 months, everybody else is 12. Now, I know that's delusional, like December's, but I'll tell you what, December 1st, when you're hitting your 2025 goals this year, you will feel as though you have 13 months, everybody else is 12. And then while everybody else is sitting on the couch eating pumpkin pie and opening Christmas presents, you're going to be lapping your competition, achieving the life you want to achieve. So I take my goals. I have probably 80 personal goals. I probably have 85 professional goals. I keep them in my journal. I track them using the habit tracker from James Clear. So some of the goals are easily trackable: saunas, workouts, red lights, journaling, meditation, reading the Bible. Those things are easy. Some of the things are a little bit harder, like family trips, date nights with my wife. Like, those things don't come as natural to me. Like the work stuff and the working out is easy. And so I just create a life where it's all systematized. It's all a process. And then every year, my wife and I sit down with one of those FedEx calendars. They're like $3.99, the desk calendar, and we plan out our entire year. So like I knew I was coming to Hawaii last December. Like I could tell you when our date nights are. I could tell you where we're going to go on a family trip. I could tell you that we booked the safari for our kids 6 months in advance. The place is like, we don't really do anything that far in advance. I'm like, no, you do now. Like, I need this now. I need this private tour now. And she's like, well, could you call back? I'm like, no, I just want to pay now. Because once we book it, once we plan it, once it's on my calendar, it happens. And so I just live very intentionally.
That's awesome. Now, you said 80 to 85 goals. Now, most people, like, even myself, when I'm teaching goals, it's like the more goals you have, the harder it is to hit any of them. What are those goals? I mean, how do you have so many goals? How do you keep track of them all? Do you have priority levels in there? What's that like?
No, so it's a goal template that I use. I got it from David. Again, watch what he did, learned from him. And it's just all very specific. It's across 8 gardens of my life. So it's everything from spirituality to contribution to bucket list adventures to family, friends, and relationships. At the beginning, I probably had 20 goals, probably 2 or 3 in each of the gardens. And then over time, what you find is, wow, I'm accomplishing 90% of what I wrote down. So like, what if I wrote down 30 things? What if I wrote down 40 things? And now today, like one of my goals is 95% goal completion. So, I'm just very specific. And some of the things are layups. They're easy things, right? It's like date nights or whatever. Like some of the things are easy, but it's the power of training my subconscious mind that I am going to be in alignment with my word, and what I say and what I do are going to be one and the same. And so I'm just reminding myself that what I put on this piece of paper, I'm going to accomplish. I'm getting those little dopamine hits every time I do those goals with the little tally marks and the little hash marks. And
I do the same thing.
You do the same thing, right?
It's like, there's my, let's see, this is this week. Yes, I've got like my 3 goals. And I've got my habits that I'm tracking. And it's like, did I do it or did I not do it?
Yeah.
And I'm like, now I add it up at the end of the week. And
then you just have an easy way.
And it's 30 seconds every morning, and it changes my life.
It's a scorecard.
That's what it is, a scorecard for your life.
And that's what I love about it. And so I just have gotten super intentional. The beautiful thing is so many people reach out to me and say, how do I bring my spouse along on this journey?
Yeah. I get that a lot too.
And I'm like, hey, you don't bring your spouse along on the journey. Like your kids, your wife, even your employees, they're going to do what you do, not what you say. So you can't say, hey, we're going to set goals.
Yeah.
I just showed my wife, like, if we set goals, we're going to have a beautiful life. And so I learned that if she was watching TV, if my wife Melissa was watching TV and I said, hey, what's something fun you want to do next year? And she's like, I want to see a Garth Brooks concert. I'm like, okay, I hate concerts, but let's. And I would take her goal and make it my goal.
Yeah.
And so now on my goals in each of the gardens, one of those things on each of those gardens is Melissa's goal. It's actually for her. And it's because I want to show her, like, when we live an intentional life, it's beautiful. And so I did that for a couple of years. And all of a sudden she realized the power of goal setting. Last year, she set goals. She ran a marathon. She did half marathon. She did 29:0, 29. She did all this amazing stuff because it was on her goals.
Yep.
Because she saw the power of having a vision, having a plan for her life, and then living that vision.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I think I get that question all the time about how do you get your wife, on board? And it's like, well, I just live my life and she sees it. And then I just give her opportunity. Like, I don't know many spouses who are like, hey, do you want to go take a couple days, go out to the beach at the beginning of the year and just like plan out what we want to do this year? Like, what spouse can be like, no, that sounds terrible.
Yeah.
Like, very few. Most of them are like, you want to know what I want to do?
Yeah.
Like, in fact, most people are like, you care about me enough to want to help me with whatever. Like, they just don't, maybe like people don't think that way because they're not in our world of like, this is like normal for us.
Right.
But you just give them that opportunity. I want to help. Like, what do you want to, like you said, while you're watching TV, what do you want to do this year?
Yep.
Like, you don't have to phrase it in like, we're going to sit down and do 3 goals and 9 habits. Let's get the David Osborne system down. It's just like use words that are normal in normal life.
Well, the other thing I love to do, man, is R&D, like rip off and duplicate.
Yeah, 100%.
So like watch people that you want to be like, watch what they're doing and implement those patterns. So again, Jesse Itzler is someone that I'm like, just look up to. I love how he speaks. I think he's one of the best speakers I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, how does he speak so well? How does he lead business so well? How is he a father so well? One of the things he does is each summer his kids set one big goal for the summer, whether it's swim across the lake or learn how to ride a bike or learn how to do 50 pull-ups. So I'm like, okay, cool. So now this summer, my daughter has already said she's going to ride a bike without training wheels. Now 5 years old, like most people are like, my 4-year-old does that. Like, cool, yeah, great, understood. But
run your own race.
Yeah, that's my daughter's plan for this summer. Now my son is going to be 3 in May, so he'll set a goal this summer. It's probably going to be like, feed the cows. I mean, it might be something foolish, but we're going to accomplish it. We're going to celebrate it. I'm going to reward them. I'm going to show them what it's like. And like the same is true with your spouse. Like, hey, what's one amazing thing you want to do this quarter? Like just one thing. They've got to have something. And if you just ask, just like you're saying, and you listen and you actually make it happen, they're all in.
Yeah. It's amazing, man. All right, let's go back to your story a little bit. Started working for David Osborne. What does that look like to work for David Osborne?
Yeah, man. So it almost looks like sitting in an air traffic controller booth, the busiest one you could possibly imagine. So let's say like what, LaGuardia or LAX? I mean, one of those, right? So you're sitting in this air traffic controller booth. You hear all of these things. You have no idea what they mean. There's planes flying everywhere. There's people yelling. There's chaos galore. And all you're doing is making sure like the head guy has water every day.
Yeah.
But the beautiful part about it was day 2, the words start to make a little more sense. Day 3, it starts to make more sense. And by like 6 months in, you're like, oh yeah, I can start to predict the patterns. I can see what's happening. I understand how to say S in lingo for the airliners, right? And you start to put all these things together. And so with David, it was the exact same way. So I started off working in his house, still to this day work out of his house. And he's just like, look over my shoulder and take things off my plate. And so I just started looking over his shoulder and was like, that's not something he needs to do. That's not something he needs to do. And I tell this story all the time. One of the things I recognized right away was he was always late leaving his house. And I was with him most of the time. I went to meetings. I was on calls. I was with him like every minute of the day. And he was always late leaving the house. He could never find his journal. He can never find his wallet, and he can never find his sunglasses. I'm like, dude, like, it's not that hard. Your house is big, but it's not that big. Like, where, And so I was like, well, what if I just parked his car facing out of the driveway, put his sunglasses, his wallet, his journal, his keys in the car, and texted him and said, everything's in your car. You're ready to go.
That's cool.
It worked for about a day. Then I realized he just wanted to be late for a meeting. Like he just didn't want to be on time, which is cool. Like that's great too. But I just like, that's how I look at every single thing in his life. I'm like, how can I take this off such that he can move freely and easily towards what he should be focused on, which from my perspective, he has to focus on deal flow, talent flow, and vision. Like where he's at in his life, he should be on those 3 things and those 3 things only. And then where I'm moving towards in my life, hopefully I'll be at those 3 things at some point. But
can you say those 3 again?
Yeah. So it's deal flow,
okay,
talent flow, and vision for his world, vision for his organization. Those are the 3 things that he needs to be spending 98% of his time on. Now, obviously family, of course, those things too. But from a work perspective, if it's not one of those 3 things, I try my darndest to not get it on his plate. I try my darndest to not get his energy on it.
How does that, kind of a personal question, maybe it doesn't affect everybody listening, but why did you say yes? And why did he say yes to coming to speak to the group, the 50 that I had? I mean, it's 20 guys in Austin, like taking time out of his day. That doesn't really fit in a deal flow, talent flow, or vision flow.
But there's also this service component. So you've done a lot for him, for GoBundance. You've just been an amazing person to his life. And it was easy. It was an easy yes. He does yoga downtown in Austin. It was right near his yoga studio. It was right on the way to take his kid to school. Like it was just an easy yes.
Okay.
And it was a way to be of service to you, who has been awesome. You've been of service. You just alluded to it. You say yes to all these speaking events. You've said yes to us a million times. And so to be able to return the favor was awesome. And then, what people say is like, that doesn't fit those 3 things. But guess what? Like, there will be a deal that comes out of that room that comes to him. There will be an employee that comes out.
When you get 50 or whatever, there's 25 millionaire real estate investors who are all crushing it. Yeah.
They're all going to be like, oh yeah, I need a really wealthy guy. Like, hey, David, do you want to get, and so like, it always comes from those kinds of things. But really the reason for that one was just service.
That's awesome. Well, I do thank you for that.
Yeah, it was cool.
Everybody after the whole event was done. This is, by the way, a group called the 50 that I run. And after it was done, everyone, that was by far their favorite part.
That's awesome.
Was like, we need more speakers to come in like David. Can you explain what, I want to get to the charity question too. So I'll ask you first. I'm going to ask you about what David's business is for those who have never heard of David Osborne and what you're doing for him.
Yeah.
And we'll talk a little about GoBundance, what that is. But before that, one thing we do on the show is 100% of ad revenue goes directly to a charity of the guest choosing. So for every episode, all the money from this episode will go towards a charity. So where are we putting the money from this episode?
Yeah, man, that's a really cool question. I mean, I really think we should find a camp for children with incarcerated parents, because that's where my story kind of all started. It's not something I've been paying attention to, but it's something like my sort of intuition has been called through just through this quick conversation. It's like, without that little Kindle in my life, I don't know that I would be where I'm at today. And so I need to find a way to pour back into that. So it was called CHIPS, Children with Incarcerated Parents. And I think we should find one of those and maybe here in Maui and give to that.
That's awesome, man. I love it. Yeah, we'll definitely look into that and figure out where to send the money. So
thanks, man.
Appreciate it. All right, so I look down at my phone and I see this text. You need to call me. Your house is on fire. And I sat there and I'm looking at the screen and I'm wondering, is this some kind of a joke? The guy who sent it was a tenant I had been trying to evict for months and he hadn't paid in forever. He had trashed the house. I mean, it was disgusting. And the guy himself was, pretty darn unstable. Now, of course, I call him after that text and it goes to voicemail. Great. Now, a few minutes later, I get a call from the fire department. Yep, my first ever rental house was burning down. So how did I get myself in that situation? Well, I didn't screen that tenant. I put in someone I thought would be good, and he was until he wasn't. Now, this is over a decade ago, and since then, I've learned how to properly vet a tenant. And that's through Turbo Tenant, which makes screening for both background and credit really, really easy. But it gets even better. Turbo Tenant also helps you market your rentals to dozens of the largest sites, including apartments.com and Redfin. You can create custom leases that cover all your rental laws. And you can even use Turbo Tenant for your automatic rent payments. All of this for less than the cost of your Netflix subscription. Yeah, I know, crazy. Save time, save money, and save your sanity by using Turbo Tenant. And because you're so darn cute, you can use the code Brandon10 to save 10%. So check it out at turbotenant.com/betterlife. Hey, so many of you have heard me tell that story about how I bought my daughter Rosie a fourplex, like a rental property, the week she was born, and how we put it on an 18-year, mortgage payoff plan so it'll be paid off when she graduates from high school. So essentially, my tenants are paying for Rosie's entire college. Now that's pretty awesome, right? Not to mention, it's also making almost like $1,000 a month in cash flow. That's double awesome. But I don't think I've ever shared really exactly how I found that deal. So here goes. I found it through direct mail marketing. And here's how. I simply built a high quality lead list of a lot of names and addresses of potential sellers, and I sent out a whole bunch of mail to every person on that list. And then I talked on the phone to a ton of people, and then I finally got one person that was interested enough to sell me the property, and I got a deal at a great price. So building that giant lead engine like that, it works, but it takes a ton of time, knowledge, and effort, which can really slow down an investor's growth, which is why I reached out to my friend Ryan with Ballpoint Marketing. I asked him to sponsor this show because they're the best at doing everything that I just talked about. They're literally going to help you build your entire lead engine. You're going to get a one-on-one call where they're going to help you figure out what you want and then build your lead list for you. Their robots are going to handwrite the postcards with a real pen, which is super cool. They're going to send them out and they'll even answer the phone calls for you. Plus, they'll help you track it all inside of a CRM that they create for you. I know, it's crazy, crazy awesome. And it's going to help you land way more deals consistently. And because you're awesome and because you listen to this show, you're going to get a discount when you tell them that I sent you, or just use code Brandon when checking out with them. I love Ballpoint Marketing and officially recommend them to all my friends and masterminds. So if you're ready to kick your deal flow up a notch, getting more quality leads without pulling your hair out, just go to ballpointmarketing.com/betterlife. Or just shoot me a DM on Instagram with the word ballpoint, like one word, ballpoint, and I'll hook you up with them directly. All right, back to you. Let's talk. What is David? What is David Osborne?
David? Yeah, what is David? So what's really cool is David is a serial entrepreneur. That's really what attracted me. He had a huge vision for his life. His key business is he's the largest franchise owner, regional owner of Keller Williams. He owns the 8th largest residential real estate brokerage in the U.S. Got about 5,000 agents across North Texas, New Mexico, Memphis, do about 12-ish billion a year in volume. I mean, we'll see what happens with
Yeah,
interest rates and stuff, right? But really, residential real estate was where it started. But then from that, we've spiraled into many different things, from distressed debt to private equity to apartment syndications to a mastermind group like GoBundance, to intellectual property, selling books. He's got all these different businesses he runs. And the coolest part about it is he runs it from like a seventh level perspective. Like, he's not in the weeds on any one of his businesses. He looks at his whole entire life as his business. And all of these different opportunities are just branches that come off the tree that he runs. And he says it beautifully. He says, you plant seeds and you manage orchards. So he planted all of these seeds. He watered them. He poured energy into them. But once they started to sprout, he put talent in place and got out of the way and let them thrive and let them run by themselves. Now, there's accountability, there's conversation, there's metrics, but he doesn't get involved in making sure, the packet gets sent out or the due diligence questionnaire was answered appropriately or the PDF looks good, right? He doesn't get lost in that stuff. And so, very, very successful, ultra high net worth individual. I run his family office and oversee all the businesses he owns and operates.
So how did you go from, volunteer at a GoBundance event to then working as just basically a personal assistant to the CEO of GoBundance, which is a massively successful mastermind?
I tell people it was dumb luck because it's an easier conversation. And then most people just let me off the hook. They're like, oh, cool, you got lucky. Nice. It's nice to be you.
Yeah. Good thing this is an unlimited length podcast.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But honestly, man, like from my perspective, it was just being of service. Like, at the end of the day, it was showing up and serving, not expecting anything in return, but trusting, again, that I would be able to find the way or make the way to achieve whatever I wanted in life. And then again, trusting in God, the universe, whatever you believe in, that if I have a plan for my life, that I will be able to see through that plan for my life. And so I've just been of service. I've tried to be a sponge through everything I've done. I try to ask questions and listen. So many people are so eager to tell you everything they're up to. And if you just sit back and listen, you can learn so much. And they'll never ask you questions, which is beautiful because, most people are like, I didn't know you did that. I didn't know you do this. I'm like, you didn't ask.
Yeah.
And I'm not eager to tell people because I'm here to learn. I'm here to listen. And, I try to use my ears and my mouth in direct proportion. You've got more ears than mouth. So I've listened, I've paid attention. But then also I found a way to make a scoreboard in everything I do. So I find a way to win. I find a way to put metrics in place for me that drive me, that inspire me, that propel me. And then I make sure we win in alignment with whatever the vision is of the business or the goals or the opportunity.
Yeah, beautiful. All right. So let's talk about your personal real estate investing a little bit, because I know you've done some real estate over years. What's real estate investing to you? What's it been?
Yeah, real estate investing has been incredible for me. I started when I was 25. I was like, I'm going to flip houses. And the first one, of course, was just a disaster. Now, the beautiful thing is like the last 10 years, you really couldn't go wrong in real estate up until maybe the last 24 months. But for the last 10 years, you really took a bad deal or a bad operator to lose money. And so the first flip, I'll never forget, it's like $30,000. It was like, buy it for 130, put 30 into it, sell it for 250. It's going to be done in 6 weeks. Like, yeah, of course, 7 months later, the air conditioner stolen. It's just a mess. But we made $40,000. I was like, oh, this is cool. So then we did another one. It worked. Then we did another one. It didn't work. And so like, there's been struggle, success, failures, opportunities, learning, wins, losses, etc. The one thing I never do though in real estate is I never stop looking at deals. So deals evolve and they change over time. And so that flip that I used to look at, those deals look so different now. Like, there's so many real estate investors now. There's so many flippers. There's so many educational courses. There's wholesalers now. Like, that wasn't a big thing 10 years ago, right? And so I've done a lot of real estate investing alongside David. And then I've done enough by myself where I've, bought short-term rental, flipped out of that, flipped houses. A lot of the stuff I've done up until this moment in my time personally has been to generate more cash. I believe that in our lifetime, we'll see 3, maybe 4 corrections that we can really take advantage of. And the last one was 2007, 2008. I was in high school, so I didn't really have the opportunity to take advantage of it. Well, I didn't find the way to take the advantage of it. It's the right way to say it. And so now I'm really trying to stockpile cash. So the last 10 years have been all about just generating as much cash as I possibly can so I can take advantage of like the ranch. So great opportunity pops up 3 weeks ago. My friend knew I was looking for something. I wanted to have this like ranch-like concept. I don't really know why I want to get into animals, but it sounds fun. My kids love it and I want to like learn and candidly, I want to teach my kids some grit on like working on a farm, what it looks like. And so my friend called me. He's like, hey, this listing goes live on Saturday. He sent it to me. I was looking at deals. I was studying the market. So I knew when 20 acres came online for $1.3 million in Austin, I was like, this is totally underpriced. We have to be the first people to see it, the first people to bid on it if we like it. And we went in $123,000 over asking price, 3-week closing time, and got the deal. And it appraised for 1.57 million from the bank's appraiser. But then I've had 2 desktop appraisals, one appraised at 1.4, but the other appraised at 1.7. So I know I'm already up. Like I just knew the deal, right? So I studied it, I learned it, and then I was able to take action when I saw the opportunity.
What's the plan with it? Just move in there eventually?
No. Well, maybe someday. No. So my plan with it is to create some sort of like an Airbnb type experience where people can stay on a farm. So we're going to have Highland cows, which are the long, shaggy cows. We're going to have Longhorns. We're going to make sure that people can feed them and hang out with them. And then also it was sort of a lure to get my in-laws to spend more time in Austin. So my father-in-law lives on 5 acres in Wisconsin, loves being outside, splits his own firewood, like just super like typical Wisconsin guy, right? Sweatshirt, hardworking kind of guy. And he's like, I could never move to Austin. I'd be bored. I could never move to Austin. I'd be bored. I'm like, okay, well, if I buy a ranch, you're not going to get bored, right? And now it looks like it might work. They're going to come to Austin in May. They were supposed to come for 5 days for my son's birthday. Now they're going to come for 2.5 weeks because he's like, oh, I'll help out on the ranch. I'll clear some trees and do all this stuff, right? So really for me, I'm going to generate revenue using it as a short-term rental, but I'm also going to generate ROJ, return on joy. Like I'm going to make memories there. I'm going to try to really make memories for my kids, for my in-laws. My wife is looking at that homeschooling pod like we talked about. They might run that out of the ranch. And then it's like a little bit of a distraction for me to get out of like the business grind sometimes and go learn about Longhorns. Like I've learned about like the most important thing in a Longhorn is the TTT, which stands for tip to tip measurement, which is horn tip to horn tip. And that's the value of it. So if you can get like 100 inches plus, like you can like really start to make some money. And I'm like, I don't think I'll ever make any money on it because I'm just not that smart when it comes to cattle. But I'm just learning and I'm showing my kids more than anything. Like if you want to do something, you have the ability to find the way, make the way to do whatever you want to do.
Yeah, that's beautiful. How'd you end up riding a bull?
It's another stupid. Yeah. So again, every year I set goals, and I set a couple goals every year that stretch me, that scare me, that push me outside of my boundaries. So when that $1.3 million ranch comes up, I'm like, well, this isn't scary. Like I rode a bull. Like it's not scary to put in an offer on a property anymore. And so in 2021, my goal was to ride a bull. And I was speaking at an event and they're like, how do you scare yourself or whatever? And I was like, well, this is how I do it. I set goals. And they're like, well, how are you going to ride a bull? I'm like, I don't know, but I'm going to figure it out. Right. At this point, it was like September. And after the event, a guy comes up to me. He's like, hey, my cousin's uncle's brother's son rides bulls. You want me to connect you? I'm like, absolutely. So I get connected to this kid in West Texas and accomplished my goal in December. Went out and rode the bull. The funny thing is the way they teach you how to ride a bull is you ride an oil barrel, like an oil drum. It's called a buck ride. It just goes up and down. I'm like, okay, well, that was easy. So like 2 minutes in, I was like, all right, I'm done. Let's move on.
Yeah, we can do the bull.
Brilliantly, I didn't wear a helmet. Still to this day, I'm not sure why I thought that was a good idea. But got on the back of the bull. I'll tell you what, man, your adrenaline, your heartbeat, when you feel a 2,000-pound animal just like ready to kill you, like no deal can scare me now. Cause like, I'm like, no seller can be that mean. No seller can be that scary. No deal can kill me. Like this could kill me. So I rode the bull, got bucked off. We never talked about the exit. We should have talked about the dismount a little bit. But I was riding. They're like, get off, get off. I'm like, oh my God, what's happening? Like, is the bull dying? Am I dying? Like, what's going on? So I let go, got flung into the fence. Still to this day, I don't know why I wore spurs. Like it didn't need to buck more. Like I wasn't trying to be in the rodeo, right? But my spur dug into the ground and my foot got caught on the fence and snapped my Achilles.
Oh, dang. Wow.
But it was fun. It was awesome.
So here's a couple of lessons I'd love to point out of here. First of all, I love that you talk about the goal.
Yeah.
This has been true in my life too. When you talk about the goal, like not just the universe or God, like just people around you want to conspire to help you achieve that goal. Anytime somebody tells me, yeah, I have a goal to do X, Y, Z. Doesn't matter what it is. My brain instantly goes to, how do I help them get there? Is there anything I know that can help them get there? Majority of the world, if they even have a goal, they keep it quiet. It's like, oh, I'm going to keep this silent. And there is some studies that say when you broadcast, like, I'm losing 50 pounds this year, it's actually negative on your ability. So I'm not saying go put on your Facebook, you're losing weight. But if you're like, have a specific thing, I'm trying to buy this kind of property or this is what I'm looking for, this kind of business I want to get into, put that out there. And there are people they will naturally start working for. Who do I know? Brother-in-law's cousin, sister's husband, like that guy can connect you. Great. Yeah. Connect us.
Yep.
So I love that story. Do you regret any of that situation? I mean,
Oh
like,
man, I don't live with regrets. I'm gonna ride another bull. I want to do it again. The coolest part of that story, and hopefully there's no like PETA listeners on here, but they recognized after I rode the bull that the bull was never actually gonna be like any good at bucking. So they actually had the bull slaughtered. So I was its last ride. So like
wow.
that's my claim to fame.
Yeah.
But I actually re-ruptured my Achilles tendon 6 weeks later at physical therapy.
Hey, at physical therapy.
At physical therapy with
That
the
guy felt
therapist.
bad.
Yeah, he got fired. It was fun. But really, there was lessons in all of it for me. Like there was lessons in all of it for me. So no, I don't have any regrets. You know, the only regret I have is I haven't done it more. Like I loved it. It was fun. It was scary. There was an adrenaline rush. And again, I could learn something new. Like I could learn what bull riding looks like. I could learn what, just learn a new skill, a new craft. And part of my life is about just getting 1% better every day. And so just doing new things, I think helps us understand how to grow and evolve as humans. And so no, I don't regret it at all.
That's cool. Tell me about GoBundance.
Yeah, so GoBundance has changed my life, man. And not just from a leadership perspective, which I'm in the role now, but when I was 23 and I learned these lessons and I started applying them, and I was in the back of the room listening to people like you talk about how to have a plan and how to buy apartments and how to, build a brand and how to take advantage of opportunities. Like I just learned so much, and I just kept asking myself, if it worked for them, why wouldn't it work for me? And I'll never forget one of the first lessons David taught me when I was asking him about himself. He's like, when I was building my offices, I would drive over this hill to get into Dallas, and the sun was coming up over this massive city. And every time I would say, who am I to be building this real estate company? And then he said, immediately I would respond with, why not me? Someone's going to do it. And so like the biggest lesson I learned from being around these GoBundance guys is someone's buying a 100-unit apartment building. Why not me? Yeah. Someone's buying a septic company. Why not me? Someone's an incredible husband, father, and business owner. Why not me? And so it's changed my life, man. It's changed the life of my friends. We took my wife and a bunch of friends to Cabo for her 30th birthday a couple years ago. And one of my really, really good friends, Ryan, came with us on the trip. And I will never forget, I was in the pool talking to him, and he looks at me and he's like, well, I only got 20 more years to live. And I'm like, what do you mean I got 20 more lives? Well, my dad died of a heart attack at X age. He's like, so I'll probably die of a heart attack too. I'm like, well, what if that wasn't the case? What if that wasn't how it had to be? He's like, well, what do you mean? And I started talking to him about goals and vision and plan. I'm like, you have the ability to choose whether that happens or not. So Ryan's gone on a weight loss journey. He's bought a new house. He's now a real estate agent. He actually just helped me buy the ranch. He's reading books. Like he's gone on this incredible journey. And those are all lessons I learned from GoBundance. And so I truly believe that whether it's a Better Life Tribe or GoBundance, through the power of peer-to-peer networks and masterminds and collaboration, we can change the world.
Yeah.
But we have to empower people and then educate them on how to take it to others and not just keep it in this little vacuum where it's quiet and hush hush, right? Like we've got to do what you're doing with the Better Life and like take it to the world and say, hey, y'all, this is how you set goals. And whether it's one goal or 84 goals, it doesning matter.
Yeah.
And so it's just changed my life. Now we have 930 members across the United States. I mean, all of whom who have a net worth of over $2 million. I'm going to do a State of the Tribe update for the group in a couple of weeks. And so I just know this number off the top of my head, but cumulative net worth of the group is $5.3 billion. Like, I mean, just cool stuff.
Yeah.
But the power of the community is really what's amazing to me. When someone's wife has cancer, how the group comes to its aid and helps that wife get into MD Anderson. When someone's mom loses their house in Florida, how the group says, hey, I've got this apartment. I'll put them in for free. Let's go help get her new furniture. Like, it's just amazing, the power of people and the power of community.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, community and GoBundance is next level. I was in, before there was 100 guys. I think I was
you were in early.
Yeah, I was in early, and I mean, I've been in it ever since. I'm still in it today. And I love the people, some of my best friends in the world. I mean, David Green, one of my best friends in the entire world. Like we met, I mean, he was on Bigger Pockets, but I didn't know him then. And then he invited me to a GoBundance event. He's like, hey, you want to come hang out with me here? And I was like, all right. So we hung out. We've just been inseparable since. So like you build these solid connections with people when you get into rooms. And I used to be the guy that was adamantly opposed to paying to get into rooms. Like, cause I was like born in the Bigger Pockets world of like, don't pay for education. Like stupid. And I remember the first time back, I mean, it's more expensive now, but I think it was $5,000 a year for GoBundance when I joined. Might even been more than that. I remember thinking that's just so much money. And so for a year I didn't join. Because I mean, I was only making $50K a year or whatever at the time. So it was a lot of money. And I had a lot of real estate. So I had the net worth requirement, but I didn't have the income. Now I'm like, that was such a stupid decision. Like I would have been better off I would have been better off living in like a crappier house and not driving a nice car and been in a room with people that are just rock stars. Because like it always pays off.
That's right.
Like on average, I love to teach them about averages. Like when I talk about this, like not every GoBundance event has had me meet a person that changed my life, but on average, right? If I met one person, I went to 10 events, but that one person made me $10 million. That means I made $1 million on each event on average, right? So when you think on average, when people ask me things like, is GoBundance worth it? I'm like, 100% is worth it on average. Is the Better Life Tribe worth it? Yeah, of course. Is it reading that book worth it? Any of these books, is it worth it? Yeah. On average, every book is worth it, right? So when you think in averages, like you get this abundance mentality of like, yeah, it's all worth it. And now, it goes back into you say at some point in life, you have to say no to more things. But until you're at that point, like just worry about, saying yes to things, because on average, it all counts. I heard Brian Tracy say the other day, all of it counts. Everything you do counts.
I love that concept.
Yeah. Isn't that cool?
I love that. I never thought of that.
Yeah. On average, everything. Yeah. Every event I've ever been to has made me millions of dollars.
On average.
On average.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that. That is cool. I like that a lot. I'm going to steal that.
All right. Yeah. So, okay. CEO of GoBundance, you are. What have you learned as CEO? I mean, like you've obviously been along the entire journey, but what's been the highs and lows and what have you learned?
We were just talking about this before the show started. Success takes longer than you think it will.
Yeah.
Everybody at some point in their life will realize success and they think everything is an overnight success. But what they fail to recognize is everything was a 10-year overnight success. They forget about that 10-year part, right? They're like,
everything's 10 years.
Oh, I got to the finish line of the marathon, but you forget about like mile 1 to 25. It's like, well, no, those were hard. They sucked. To mile 14, you wanted to quit, right? And so it's been really hard. It's gone a lot slower than I wanted to. Leadership is hard. Hiring talent is hard. Leading people is hard. Leading leaders is really hard. Like these GoBundance guys are really high-powered, high-charging, successful men that all have opinions and want to tell you what to do.
Yeah.
And I've also learned, man, to just trust my intuition. Like I've got a really good gut. I think we all do. And if I can just listen to my intuition and let that be my guiding light while being of service to people, everything else will take care of itself.
That's good. Do you operate in any kind of like operating system like EOS or anything like that?
We tried, man. I'm a big downer on EOS now. We tried EOS and I think it works for some people, but I think it's too boxy for my mind. I think it lost my ability to be creative and have like a flair of creativity. We do have an operating system. We have like a scorecard, if you will, like the EOS scorecard, and we talk metrics and we talk stats. But I honestly am a big believer that the best operating system for any business is talent. Like I think so many people are looking for operating systems to fix business when really you need to find talent to fix business. Get out of the way, like find talent, get out of the way. And so that's what I'm going through right now is like a talent search. Like I think also on our journey, like what we recognize as talent evolves over time. Like the first assistant we hired is like, wow, she was awesome. And then you get to a point where you maybe outgrow them or they get sick of you and hate you and don't want to deal with you anymore, whatever it is, right? And now your talent looks different. And so you have to allow yourself to evolve as a leader and continue to look at what talent really means for you and your organization. And I try not to be the bottleneck. So I try not to like put the system in place. I try not to micromanage the system. I try to let the team run the systems. I definitely have my journal and my system for keeping the systems for me, but then I just hold them accountable my way and let them run the system the way they want to do it.
Yeah. Very cool, man.
It might not work, by the way. I could come back here in 3 years and be like, that sucked. That was wrong. Idea. EOS is amazing. But I just don't think there is a magic pill or a magic bullet for fixing business. And I think that's what EOS kind of claims to be. And so I think you just got to find what works for you. Yeah.
Yeah. I do EOS inside half of my businesses. And it's been really, really good in terms of, how do I say that? We needed the box, I guess is the way to say it. We needed a box because we didn't have the good systems. And so things like I was trying to manage everything myself. And I love my people, but none of my people in any of my companies, I never hired any for their experience, right? Like Walker was an intern, now runs Open Door Capital. Matt Buck, who runs Better Life Tribe, was an intern, now runs Better Life Tribe. Matt Francois he's an amazing dude, runs the 50. But he came from a private dining experience thing out here, right? So none of them came from like, oh, yeah, I've done this before for 20 years and now I'm a rock star. So in every one of those companies, we needed a box to just be like, okay, we don't know how to manage. Right. So this is how you manage people and make sure everyone has goals and whatever like that. But almost every company I know that does EOS for a number of years ends up broadening it because they need more flexibility. But yeah, we had to get that. And that's why I encourage people. I'm like, if you don't know how to manage well, you don't have everybody marching in the same direction and it's just chaos. EOS, get in that box. And then I think it's really helpful to like, at some point you're like, okay, now I need to go different. So there's a book called 4 Disciplines of Execution. I love that concept, Chris McChesney. So we implement a piece of that, kind of combine the two together with a little bit of like the 12-week year. Kind of combine all those together into kind of a system. In a way, like the whole Better Life Tribe really is an amalgamation of those 3 books, maybe add in the one thing. Combine all that together. That's kind of what we do for personal lives. And so you're the same thing David does, basically.
It applies to your business.
Yeah, exactly.
Brilliant, man. It's awesome.
All right, man. We got to move on toward the next segment of the show. This is called the 3-2-1 pivot. The idea of a pivot. Your life's going one direction and something stops it and makes it change in another direction. We've talked about a number of your pivots today. But I want to start with 3 books that you've read that after reading it changed the direction of your life.
So Think and Grow Rich, As a Man Thinketh, and Rich Dad Poor Dad. Like the 3 books that changed my, I mean, it's cliche because they've changed everybody's life. The 4th one I'd throw in there was Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. That's a great book too. But I mean, when I read As a Man Thinketh, I'll never forget, I still have the copy. Pat Hien gave it to me. He wrote this beautiful note in the front cover of it about how it changed his life. He used to keep it above his visor in his car, read it at stoplights.
Yeah, that's right.
I read it. I mean, I could still pull it out today. I could show you all the flags I have, all the sticky notes I have in it and stuff. It changed my life.
That's awesome.
Absolutely changed it.
Beautiful, man. Number 2, 2 people who have changed the direction of your life.
Oh, man.
Obviously, we talked about a few of them today.
I would say, honestly, I would say my wife and David Osborne. Like, I would have never went to Washington, D.C. had it not been for my girlfriend, who's now my wife. Like, she's changed my life. She's been the greatest support system. She's been like, she's way more courageous than I ever was. She's like, we're moving to DC. I'm like, DC? I've never even been to DC. What do you mean?
Where'd you meet her?
It's funny. I met her when I was dating another girl in high school. And my ex-girlfriend and my wife were friends. And I became really good friends with my wife. And I was like, man, she's really cool. This is awesome. Like, that's the kind of person I want to be with. And broke up with that other girl and then stayed friends with my wife. And then one thing led to another. And started dating.
What do you love about your wife?
She is just so thoughtful around like her every little detail. Like even on this trip, like if things don't go exactly as she wanted, she gets so frustrated and so mad because she just wants it to be perfect. She wants everybody to have a perfect experience. And I just love how much she cares about stuff. Drives me crazy sometimes, by the way. And like I heard the other day, like I oftentimes like think she's a control freak. But what a control freak really is just someone that has a higher standard for something than you have. And so now I've like looked at that and go like, wow, I don't hate that she tries to be a control freak. I love that because she has a way higher standard for this trip than I ever will.
Yeah.
Like, she cared so much more about the road to Hana and having banana bread than I ever will. But the road was incredible. Yeah. It was crazy.
Yeah, not a cool drive.
It was awesome.
Did you guys have the app to listen to on the way?
No, we didn't go the full way. I mean, we had a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. It was like really an hour and 30 minutes. I was like, I'm turning around this dang thing. But it was amazing.
If you ever do it again, there's an app. There's 2 of them actually out there that in the app store, just Road to Hana, and it knows where you're at GPS-wise. They'll be like, hey, pull over here. There's this, a cave on the side of the road or a little waterfall. And those are pretty cool.
That's cool. But
I'll check that out. It's hard with kids. Like the first time we took our kids, they both were puking. And
Yeah.
It's not.
It's not a good road.
Yeah. For those who don't know, the Road to Hana is it's like a 50-mile road. And so you're like, oh yeah, it'll take me an hour to get there. But no, it takes you 5 hours, 6 hours to get there. And there's like, I don't know, 400 turns and like 150 little 1-lane bridges. And it's all on the edge of a cliff overlooking the jungle. It's just unreal. And then you get to Hana and so you didn't make it that far. You get to Hana and there's nothing in Hana. Hana is like a gas station and a crappy grocery store.
That's what I wondered.
Yeah,
I was like,
nothing there.
Like, is he going to get there and be like this beautiful arch?
Yeah, no, there's nothing. There's nothing in Hana. And so people, like I had a friend one time, it takes 5 hours. Like to do it well, you stop a few times and it takes 4 or 5 hours, maybe 6, maybe 7 or 8 if you have little kids. One way. Yeah, one way. I have a friend who got there, calls me an hour and a half later and says, okay, we made it to Hana, now what? And I was like, wait, what? And they're like, yeah, we're there. And I was like, you missed it. Like the whole thing, like because there's nothing there. Yeah. And they didn't realize that. And it's such a metaphor for life. A lot of business books have actually used this metaphor in their books, but like, it's the journey that matters. It's the stops along the way. It's the banana bread and the waterfalls. And you get to Hana and people just rush to get to Hana and then there's nothing there. And you're like, oh, I guess I should have taken my time.
Man, it's so beautiful because you're right on life. We rush to get to our goals and we recognize they're just empty.
Yeah,
The journey is really where the reward is.
Yeah. The goal, there's a lot of, I can't remember who said it, but there's a lot of quotes around that. But basically the purpose of a goal is not to hit the goal. It's to become the kind of person who can achieve that goal. And I love that idea of like, you're riding the bull. You didn't like the bull. Yeah, cool. You rode a bull. But you became a guy who could ride a bull.
Yeah.
And that's a more important thing is to become a guy who could ride a bull.
Yeah.
A guy who sets a goal and then achieves the goal. That's the actual goal, is to become a goal guy, not to ride a bull.
Not to ride a bull. It's same with real estate. Like it's not to buy a bunch of property. It's to be a guy who can buy a bunch of property, be a guy who can live freely. It's not to own that. Like, cool, you own a house. Like, cool, you own a rental, but it's about being the guy that can own it.
Yeah. That's why people ask me all the time, like, when's enough? And they do it with kind of that, like, like that.
That judgment.
Yeah, the judgment's
there.
Like, when's enough? I'm like, well, like, I don't need another 1,000 units, like, or 2,000, 10,000 units. I don't need that. I want to become the guy that can have 20,000 units. Because I had to become a different person to have 13,000. Like, I'm a completely different person I was 5 years ago. I want to know what it's like to have the kind of guy that can have 25,000. That's a whole different person. I want to be that guy. And to know how he leads and how he thinks and how he serves. And to do that, like, there is never enough. When you look at it that way.
No. So there's always an opportunity to get 1% better.
Yes.
That's the
always.
Goal. Always.
All right. So that was people. Let's go pivot quote. What's a quote that's changed the direction of your life?
Find the way or make the way. I mean,
Ooh.
it's kind of one I've adopted by myself, but I tell myself that all the time. Like, if there's something that I want to do, there's somebody I want to meet, there's a thing I want to be a part of, I can either find the way or I can make the way. Those are my options. Like, no is not an option for me. So, like, one of my goals this year is to speak in front of 5,000 people. How am I going to do it? I got no idea, but I'm going to find the way or make the way. So I hired a speaking coach. I'm starting to tell people about what I want to do. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm going to just figure it out. Like, so for me, what's changed my life is two options: find the way or make the way.
That's beautiful. All right. Past, present, future. Let's start with the past. What is your advice to your younger self? If you go back to 18-year-old you and give yourself some advice.
Think bigger.
Think bigger.
Think bigger.
Why?
Yeah. I had big dreams, big aspirations. I wanted to be a millionaire by the time I was 30, but then it stopped at that. Think bigger. Like, what else is possible? Like, don't just think about being a millionaire for you. Think about like being a billionaire to change the world, like to solve hunger, to fix vision in Africa, like whatever your vision, like whatever your mission is, whatever your passion is, think bigger. And I wish younger self thought bigger.
Do you know Scott Harrison, Charity Water?
Yeah.
So Scott is, I interviewed him on the podcast. We become, decent friends. And that's one thing that just blows my mind is like, he just thinks like, I'm going to solve water. Mm-hmm. Like, that's like, he's just like, I'm going to solve water worldwide. And I'm just like, what am I doing with my life? Like, he's going to solve water for 1 billion people.
Right.
And I'm sitting there trying to figure out whatever, like small little problems of like how to deal with a renter in my property. I'm like, oh, this guy's, he thinks bigger.
Thinking bigger. And because if his goal is to solve water for 1 billion people and he's shooting for the moon, he misses. Yeah. And he only solves it for 500 million people.
Yeah,
like, it's still an incredible thing,
it's
right?
Still incredible.
So I wish I would have thought bigger.
Yeah. Yeah. Wild, man. All right. What about today? Let's ask this. What is something, this is a question I used to ask. I kind of have pivoted lately on this show and asking it different, but I want to go back to the original because I think you're a good guy to answer this one. What is a habit or trait or skill this year you're trying to develop in your life?
This year, well, reading the Bible, I mean, really it's around spirituality for me this year. Yeah. I'm super disciplined when it comes to like waking up, working out, cold plunging, saunaing, red light therapy. Like, I'm super disciplined about that. I love my mornings. Like, that was probably something I picked up 4 or 5 years ago and then got hijacked by my children. And then now I'm getting back by just waking up earlier. But for me, I think it's about like just trying to understand for me what my spirituality feels like, what it looks like. And I guess the other thing is being a better leader. So I hired a CEO coach and I'm trying to figure out like really what does it mean to be a CEO of $1 billion company? Not that I am today. Yeah. But like I tell myself like I am the CEO of $1 billion company. And like people will say, no, you're not. And I'll say yet. I'm not yet. I'm going to be. I'm just not there yet. And so for me, it's about, leadership from, like a spirituality perspective and then from an internal perspective.
Yeah, that's cool, man. What is your current definition of what it means to live a better life?
My current definition is just get 1% better every day and build playgrounds along the way. So like I think so many people, like here, I'll tell you something. The average cost of a funeral in the state of Texas is $7,300. So many people spend their entire life worrying about how they're going to buy the box that they're going to lay in for the rest of their life. Like, you're dead. It doesn't matter. Just put you in the dirt. Spend $7,300 and take your kids to Disney on the VIP experience. Bring your family along. Like, make memories, build playgrounds along the way. And so like, for me, like living a better life means getting 1% better and building playgrounds along the way. Like yesterday, we went on the helicopter tour. Didn't tell my in-laws, didn't tell my wife, didn't tell my kids. We went on the helicopter tour. Asked everybody tonight at dinner, what was your favorite part of the trip? Helicopter tour, helicopter. It's like build playgrounds because those are the moments when you're on your deathbed, you're going to talk about. You're not going to talk about like the casket you're in and the color sheets. It doesn't matter. You're going to be dead. You're going to talk about, remember when we were in Hawaii and we saw those waterfalls from the helicopter? Like my in-laws, my wife, my children, that was their first time in a helicopter. They'll never forget that. That's what life's all about. That's what a better life is all about.
That's cool, man. I love that. Yeah. Making those core memories, like.
That's it, dude.
And it just requires a little bit of intentionality. It's not even like this grand epic thing. It's just going, what can I do that's like just super cool? I tell the story before and it's not to pat myself on the back, but one day I just like was like, it'd be fun if I did like a treasure hunt for the kids. So I literally made a black eye patch, like, out of a rubber band and some construction paper. And then I went and made a bunch of little rolled up like rhymes, like, like fee, fi, fo, fum, whatever. Yeah. Go look in the mailbox. Yeah. It was just like that, right? Yeah. And they had like 8 of these and had to go walk around the property and pick them up. But I walked in their room and I kicked open their door when they were in there playing. And I was like, "Arg! Yar, going on a pirate treasure hunt." And they just flipped out in the best way possible. Like, it was the coolest thing. They still talk about that. It was like 2 years ago. They still talk about that, about the day they did the pirate thing. And it took me half-hour planning, a little bit of intentionality. And then it's like, it's been 2 years since I did it.
They'll never forget it.
They'll never forget it. Core memory.
I mean, the same as happened with the Disney thing, right? Like, it's the most expensive, ridiculous per hour rate ever, right?
Yeah, we did that too. It's so good.
But it's so, I mean, it's worth every dollar.
Yeah,
but
it's worth every dollar.
My dad came with us.
Yeah.
And the Ratatouille line was like an hour and a half. Yeah. And we skipped the entire line. And like, my dad still to this day, 5'6", talks about how he walked past that entire line like an NFL linebacker that just won the Super Bowl because he got to skip everybody.
Yeah.
Like, he will literally talk about that forever. Like, what is that worth? I would have paid 10x what I paid for him to have that core memory because I'm a part of it. And now he's a part of my core memory, which is telling the story about what he felt like.
Yeah.
Just like yours. That's cool, man. That's awesome.
At the end of your life, what do you want people to say about you after you die? Like when they're standing above your casket, your kids are talking about you. What do you want them to say?
Man, it's gonna be cliche. He lived a better life. Like he just lived all out. Like I don't want them to be like, oh, he could have been, he should have been, right? Like when they're lowering me in the ground, I don't want to have the ghost of regret or remorse around me. I want him to be just like, wow, he like changed the world. He lived a better life. Like that's really cool.
That's awesome. All right, let's wrap things up. First of all, what are you excited about? What's coming up in your life that you're pumped about?
Man, well, my wife's pregnant.
Oh, no way.
Having another baby in September. Yeah,
so
cool. Baby 3, so that's exciting. But honestly, man, this ranch has really got me super excited. So we bought the ranch. It has Black Angus cattle on it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't like those cows. They're mean. So I found a guy to buy the cows. I have no idea if he underpriced. He's like, these things are sick and look bad. I'll give you $8,000 for the herd. I'm like, great, you can have the herd. When can you pick it up?
He's just like a wholesaler. He's going to get $45,000 for someone else.
That's my wife told me that, yeah. So then I went on Craigslist and I was like, Longhorn cattle. So I was like, oh, this guy seems nice. So I called him up. I'm like, hey, man, I want to buy some Longhorns. He's like, all right, great. What are you trying to do? I'm like, oh, I'm trying to start a herd. He's like, okay, great. Well, I'll sell you these 3 females and then this one young bull. And then I'm like, okay, cool. And he's like, oh, yeah, by the way, 2 of the females are pregnant. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. We can handle that. And then I was looking another day. I'm like, oh, that one's beautiful. That one's for sale too. So I'm like, I'll buy that one too. And I'm like, oh, we want Scottish Highlands. So I found another lady online. I'm like, I'll buy those. And so literally this Saturday, we get back from Hawaii. I have a tractor coming. I have no idea how to buy a tractor. Never went and looked at the tractor. Never drove the tractor. But I'm like, I'm going to need a tractor.
Need one.
So I've got a tractor coming. And then I have 6 Longhorns showing up on Saturday. No idea how to take care of them. No idea what I'm going to do. And 4 of them are pregnant. One's due in August. 2 of them are due in September, same month as my wife. And then the other one's due in December. So my wife's like, well, what are we going to do? I find the way to make this work, right? Scottish Highland, I bought a baby calf, baby male who is a calf right now. He's going to stay a bull so I can actually breed him too. He can't get delivered until September. So she's finding me 2 other Scottish Highlands that are females. Because he won't be able to breed for another 18 months, it'll give me some time to get my feet under me before I start breeding all of these cows as if I'm like, I really don't know what I'm doing here, but that's probably what I'm most excited about. I bought my kids a 4-wheeler last night because I was like, okay, I need a 4-wheeler to drive around this ranch. Got to, right? So I, of course, buy myself a used one, buy them a brand new one. I was like, you bought our kids a 4-wheeler? It says ages 6 and up. Yeah, that's just a recommendation.
Yeah, they'll be fine.
She's 5. Yeah. Like, come on, it doesn't matter. She's like, what about helmets? I'm like, oh yeah, helmets. Went on Amazon, bought 2 helmets.
There you go.
She's like, you don't even own boots. I'm like, you're right, I don't own boots. Went on Amazon, bought some cowboy boots. Like, I'm just, I'm really excited to just experience what this all looks like. And I'm just sharing it all on social media. And people are like, you bought a cow off of Craigslist? I'm like, it's a Longhorn. It's not a cow. Like, don't get them confused. Come on.
Don't put down. Don't put down my Longhorn.
Do you understand what its TTT is? Like, come on. So I'm really excited to just to learn, just to experience stuff, to like make mistakes, screw stuff up. Like, cows get out. What am I going to do? I've got no idea, but I'm going to figure it out.
Make some core memories too.
That's it, man.
Yeah.
That's it.
All right, man. Where can people find out more about you?
Social media is probably, Instagram is probably my most active because they just shut down my Facebook.
They did?
Apparently somehow my old Instagram, which I got locked out of, got hacked and then got linked with my Facebook. And then so we're trying to get it back. I think we'll get it back. We got the right connections, but Instagram is by far the best. It's just mattking.atx. And I'm just sharing everything I'm up to. So the ranch, GoBundance, business, real estate deals, personal, professional, like just the world, man. I'm just sharing it all. Want to be super transparent and show people like life's not all sunshines and rainbows. Like I'm going to step in some cow shit in life and be okay.
Yeah, you are. All right, man. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you, man. Thanks for having me. That was awesome.
And that, my people, is the show. Thank you for tuning in. And hey, before you go, if you enjoyed the episode or if you enjoy the show in general, please consider leaving us a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. We really do value your feedback, and we read the comments. We make future decisions about topics and guests and everything else. Plus, it helps us reach more people the more reviews we get. And last but not least, please head over to social media. Consider friending and following and subscribing to all that stuff at Better Life and my personal page at Beardy Brandon, Instagram, YouTube, and everywhere else. Thank you again for listening. I'm honored that you would bring me along on your journey toward building wealth through real estate investing without losing your soul.